Welcome to all the guests. I have to turn off the music. Welcome to everyone that joined. Today's event is LGBT in the world, and we have some people here to tell about their experience in their countries. So I'd like to invite Koei to start with their presentation.
All right, thank you, Leonardo. And thank you to Sophie for asking me to do it. It's so nice to see you after like 2 years, although virtually. I'm originally from China. Now I am in Rotterdam, Holland. And I was in an almost 2 years relationship with a girl before. And I had this bunch of lesbian friends. And although they're like quite hidden because that was in China. So it's not like that public. So today I would like to share some situation of the lesbian group mainly, or just homosexual group situation in China, which is quite different compared to Europe. Especially that now that I'm in Rotterdam, Holland, you can just see the rainbow flag flying everywhere. That's definitely not the case in China. And I'd like to say, in general, in China, this group is way less accepted. And yeah, it's just people try to hide it. For example, if two girls or two guys trying to hold hand or whatever in public place like metro station, whatever, they won't do it because that's commonly like not accepted. And after my own experience and also thinking about it, also I took this course called Gender Matters in my bachelor university. And I realized it's not that just people don't like it in general. I don't know whether that's the case in your own country with all the participants. The issue that I think in China is that basically the whole system is not giving a space for this group of people to exist. This means is not only like people don't like it. It's, for example, I remember this, like, first the thing is in China and also in a lot of other Asian countries, people getting married or people being in relationship is not only the issue of these two people. It's not only the issue of the couple or just about love. It's basically a family issue. Like, you get a boyfriend or girlfriend, it's like your family is all involved in this. So it's more complicated, I would say, compared to European situation in on this aspect. For example, if I bring home a girl with me, then even if, for example, my parents will be more or less okay with it, maybe they'll feel like they are not that, they'll be looked down upon by the bigger family. So that's the issue in China. And another thing is, I remember when I told my dad about my ex-girlfriend, who was then my girlfriend, he was like, well, if you have to do it in Holland. Well, this is not a reason why I'm here right now. I'm here for studying. But what he meant is that if you are not having like a normal partner, which is considered in China, you have trouble in a lot of things when it comes to certificates, because if you have a baby or whatever, you need certificate for the baby, you need a house, you need a job, you need all these kind of certificates. And if you don't have these normal partners, you are not able to get these things, which will make you basically impossible to continue your life. So that's another aspect why this thing really is not working well in China. And another thing is, I don't know if you guys are aware that like Google, whatever, this YouTube, Google, Pornhub are all censored. Like, they are not accessible in China. You cannot go on them. So, and also things are pretty censored, like things produced in China, they can only be shown on air if they pass this standard from the government. And homosexual or anything that's not that mainstream, that's not allowed by the government, cannot be shown to people. So that's another reason why people are not accepting it. A lot of them didn't ever have the chance to really know what it is. It's like being evilized in China. And also, like, this kind of meetings, the first time I attended, which is definitely not going to be the case in China. So it's definitely, this issue need to be more vocal in my home country. But right now, because I was from this university where I met Sophie, and the university is more like a Hong Kong university, is more international, so that's way more vocal when it comes to this issue. So yeah, there I met these people who are more aware of the issue of this different situation of people who are not that mainstream. So it's definitely improving, and there are some celebrity like being more vocal about this, but for sure it needs to be improved even more. Yeah, so the above would be like the main issue I think I want to share about the situation in China. And yeah, I'm welcome all kinds of questions if you're curious about other things when it comes to this in China.
Do we have any questions from any other participant in the
Yeah.
chat?
I would like to ask a question.
Okay.
Hi, Kay.
Hi, Sophie.
It's good to see you, first of all.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
And yeah, me too. I just wanted to ask you, like, if it's not too personal, about like your parents,
Yeah.
because from what I understood, they were more concerned about your safety in like coming out in China, more than anything else. It was like they were accepting you, but they were concerned about your safety. Was that the case?
More or less, yes, because although
Most
my
parents in
like
China, or not?
wait, I don't know if the connect or it's not the best. Yeah, I think that's the case because for sure it's not easy for them to accept it, but I'm very sure that they are, because they are both quite open-minded and they love me. I know that. So no matter how weird it is for them, I know they'll come, make their peace with it in the end. But there's the thing that really bothers them is that they know I will basically be not be able to survive in China in a quite okay way if I like have to do this in the future years. So yeah, they were more concerning about the real issue, not like the whether they like it or not. Of course, they didn't like it at first, but they were thinking more about the material issue in the future. Is it only me or Sophie stuck?
I think
No, she's stuck.
she's stuck. She
I'm
has some
sorry, I
connection
may have
issue.
a bad connection.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, how do you feel? Like, how was your experience coming out to your parents? Like, did you do it
Yeah,
in
it was
China
very
or was
ugly.
it?
Yeah, I was in China. I remember I was like calling my dad from my university. I wasn't like making a big deal about it. I was trying to bring it as light as I could because he had high pressure. So I don't want to like kill him or anything. Yeah, but still, it wasn't that good. Like I call him very, very lightly brought up that I might like this girl, like super to the least I could. And then I call him, and then afterwards I was in class, and then I was in class getting his phone call. He's like, "Come on, I'm like outside of your classroom." He drove like past like 2 hours to go to my university. I was like, okay, and then yeah, I just went out, seeing him at the car. All the face, like his face, just become purple with the extreme anger. And then he just drove me into the car and had this conversation with me, trying to like using very unpleasant words on this relationship, which I completely understood why he's like that. But yeah, it was really hard to listen to. And yeah, that basically made our relationship bad for like years. But later it became better. I guess he's like trying to accept it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Another thing, like, how do you feel like people in China, like, how do you, like, other than feeling, like, if you're not exposed to media that shows gay couples, like, how is the spectrum of like knowledge, like how informed are people, how do people know and uh, find media about gay people?
Well, if you don't use, yeah, this more of a young people thing. Like, for example, my parents' generation, they basically got zero information about this. That's why they only like, when they hear these words, gay or lesbian or homosexual, they relate it to very limited thing they got, which is quite changed when it's shown to them. It's like, the government wants you to see this, and that's what they saw. But when it comes to my generation, for example, I'm now in Holland, and also some other friends of mine, they actually went on Google and they see, okay, it's more close to facts, just people who happen to like, same-sex people, or just doesn't care which gender, just like the person, him or herself. Another kind of form is that there's this form of Japanese anime that's featuring this, and a lot of people in China likes that, and they get information through that, which is not that scientific, but I have to say still better than the Chinese thing themselves. So yeah, through not very scientific or not very truthful channel, we get information.
Thank you. Do we have any question from the audience?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
So here in Italy, we have this, actually, it's not a problem. It's more that sometimes we use the religion as an excuse for, you know, saying, oh, being gay is wrong. And so I want to know if the religion, what is the role of the Chinese religion in this situation, not giving a voice to the LGBT community?
Yeah, I would say that's not that heavy in China because I forgot the English word for that, like we don't have religion. We have Buddhism, but that's not as strong, like it doesn't guide us it doesn't forbid stuff. It's not like Christianity, it's not like Indian Hinduism. It's not strong enough to forbid people to do stuff or, guide you to do certain stuff. So I don't think a religion is that strong of a force when it comes to this in China. It's more about like Chinese people we have no religion, but we have this we are pretty brainwashed in general, especially the older generation. So yeah, it's pretty hard to change their opinion on it, which is non-religion related. It's more like, I think the family issue I just mentioned is way heavier on this. They'll think, okay, even if I'm okay with it, what would my sisters say about my daughter getting a girlfriend or my son getting a boyfriend? Like, what would my parents think of it? What the other, relatives who actually has nothing to do with me, but like, what would they think of it? They really care about other people's family's opinion on them.
Anyone else? If you don't want to speak, you can also write it in chat.
I have more like a consideration that I want to ask related to this last answer, in the sense that from what I hear, to be part of the LGBT community in China is more a problem for your family. So it's like if a foreigner, like if I go to China, I don't exactly feel any discrimination because I'm not Chinese. Is that true?
I would say, yeah, I understand your question as in you are saying maybe because you're a foreigner, so even if you are homosexual, you are more accepted in China. Is that what you mean? If I
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, weirdly, I think that's the case. Because also China is pretty close because we are having like YouTube and Google, these are close to Chinese people. So most Chinese people are not that familiar with foreigners. And when they are, sometimes when you're not that familiar with one thing, you know that a lot of feature about this thing or this person is strange to you. So you kind of like accept whatever that's strange about the thing. So yeah, like a lot of thing on you is better or more normal to Chinese people than on me, because I'm like one of them. So they're like, okay, you're a Chinese, should be like this, but you're a foreigner. They're like, okay, maybe foreigners are like this. It's like more excuse. I know it sounds very weird, but it's like the case.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very peculiar. And another question, gay people, how do they meet each other in China? Like there are dating apps or other?
Like meet each other? You mean like what do you mean?
Yeah, like with dating apps or websites.
We have Chinese version of Tinder and some, I don't know, I think there are some groups, like I wasn't exploring this, I used Tinder, but there are some groups on like some forums you can use online. But I think those are pretty hidden. You have to know some code or something, or to know people from there to get in. It's like an underground organization. And also because we have this Chinese searching engine, which is called Baidu. I don't know if you guys heard about it. And also that like it's basically Chinese Google with very not truthful information on it. And so even if they don't want to be so underground, like whenever something shows, for example, gay or this shows up in Chinese, like this character shows up, and the website police would just found out and just cancel this whole forum. So they have to like talk in a pretty secret way, or talk in a very implicit way, not like showing it that much. That's why it's very hard to find. If you search on Chinese engine like homosexual or gay or lesbian, you're not that likely to find this forum. You're not that likely to find a group of people like that, because they're like more hidden. Otherwise, they're gonna be canceled, the forum.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have a question. Hello, everyone. I'm Neil here. I come from Brazil, and I wanted to know São Paulo, Brazil. And I wanted to know if I came a little late. I couldn't hear what city are you from. But is it? Do you usually find people holding hands, like gay couples holding hands in the streets or kissing, things like that, like in public?
No, in big city more. I realize it's more this year's, like this recent 2 years is definitely more than before, but still no. And even if they do, they're doing it quite hidden. Like they're not like really showing it. They're doing it more, trying to tune it down a little bit. Also, that's the Chinese culture. Even if you are straight, you are not gay or lesbian, still not as expressive as Brazilian or just Western people.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. We'll have. I think we go ahead with the next guest, and if any other questions come up, you're free to either write them in chat, and we get. If you can stay here for the second guest. So after the second guest, if there are any other questions, if you want, you can answer them. If you have to go, you can also just go. It's no problem. So if you have to go, let me know. If you can stay on another half hour or so, that would be okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. Koi?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought you were talking to everyone.
No, I was talking to you.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay, all right.
So if you can stay for half an hour, otherwise you can also like because of maybe other questions that come up.
All right.
So I'll have Marcin Alexander do his.
Hello.
Do them.
Okay, here I am. Can you hear me well? I hope you do. All right. So nice to meet you. My name is Marcin Alexander. I'm from Poland, the country that you probably heard a lot of bad stuff about, and it's unfortunately a lot of it is true. I'm a non-binary transmasculine person. I use they them pronouns. I'm a painter. And I have been living in Italy since 6 years, but I grew up in Poland and I am very familiar with situation. First of all, I am really honored to participate, to be able to share this experience with you, because many people don't really know that how it really looks. I will talk mostly about trans experience, how the transition looks. I am not an experienced public speaker, so I prepared a written part, and it will get a little bit tough at moments, but as the reality isn't very pretty, but I think you will find some positivity in there. Also, I have prepared a Google Docs file with resources, so if you want to look up some stuff, it will appear in the chat later. So I shall start. My name is Marcin Alexander. I'm 25. I'm an artist. I'm a Polish, transmasculine, and non-binary person, and nowadays I live in Italy. Although today I know how to define myself, and I'm just being unapologetically queer, that was not always the case, unfortunately. Throughout my journey, I had to unlearn many transphobic rhetorics that were pushed onto me since my early days. Although I emigrated to Italy 6 years ago, I grew up in Poland. I will talk about my trans experience, and I speak as a person who grew up within the context of a large city. For time frame context, I started my hormone replacement therapy in March 2012 and legally changed my documents in September 2014, so 2 years. Being a trans kid wasn't easy, as in the 2000s, no resources at all were provided to me to learn about existence of transgender people. And sure, you heard about gays and lesbians and bisexuals, and it was nothing new nor scandalous, but trans people were some sort of an urban legend. You know, the stories from your drunk aunt who claims she knows a man who used to be a woman. Myself, I consciously learned about trans people on the internet as I was 14, in 2009. Thank you, DeviantArt. And that's when I realized that, hey, that's what was going on within me all these years. I learned about transsexuals, or men trapped in women's bodies, or vice versa. This kind of perversely romanticized binary narrative. It made so much sense to me at the time, though. I happily came out to my closest friends, and to be met with either negation or just laughs, so I reached out to the internet. At the time, there was one forum for trans people in Poland. It was named Niebieskie Forum, the Blue Forum. It was the only place where I could actually meet other trans folks and openly talk about what to do to transition. It was a pretty large community of helpful people who shared their experiences and helped each other out with stuff related to transition and trans stuff in general. And offline, there was no way to meet anyone queer as youth. In the end, it's a well-known fact that we're all cis hetero until we turn 18, right? And the forum got me familiar with the entire transitioning process, which hasn't changed since I first learned about it. It typically looks like that. You need to pick a doctor specialized in diagnosing transgender individuals, either a sexuologist or a psychologist. Said doctor leads you through your transition, typically until you legally change your documents. And they refer you to medical examinations, value your transness, decide whether you're suitable to get access to transition-related services. If you behave and think according to stereotypically defined Polish-centered gender roles assigned to your designated gender. So if I want to become a man, I need to have short hair and ridiculous stuff like that. And of course, most doctors recognized only binary trans individuals. After we've changed your documents, your treatment continues with an endocrinologist, and they're usually more competent. The Blue Forum gave me all the practical information I needed to understand what awaits me. Unfortunately, practical information aside, there was also plenty of people who proclaimed the pathologizing discourse that surrounds the transgender-related discussions in Poland, pushed forward by institutions, medical field, and even some academia. Besides choosing the doctor who best suited my needs, I also learned that if I don't despise my body, I'm not really trans, that being trans is linked with being miserable, that all trans people wish they were born cis, and don't even get me started on ridiculous saturated gender roles. Like if you're a woman, then you need to grow your hair long. Anyway, I don't blame the community of the Blue Forum for saying this stuff, really. In the end, Dr. Dulko, the most influential sexuologist in the country, most active in the late 80s, and who still is considered a renowned expert on transgenderism, wrote in his manual titled Curse of Androgyne that, this is a citation, a transsexual is immersed in inner dramas, is internally torn apart. A transsexual frustrates himself, eats his heart out, displays hatred towards his own body. It is a very popular book about transgender individuals. And unfortunately, that was the very baseline of what most sexuologists knew of trans people. And there were about 20 who were specialized in receiving trans people when I was transitioning in early 2010s. The only way you can transition in Poland is through conforming to very binary, heteronormative, and stereotypical gender roles. If you tried to apply the same standards to cis people, it would sound ridiculous. Some doctors were requiring trans women to wear skirts to be recognized as women. And even today in 2020, you have to prove to sexuologists, psychiatrists, and court alike that you are frankly like a cis person, but born in the wrong body. And in order to do that, you have to go through years of humiliating, expensive, and tiring process of transitioning. And the process from your first appointment to legal document change takes often 2-3 years, most generally 6, and even up to 10, depending on individual social situation. And personally, I had to get my chromosomes checked, my head scanned for abnormalities, go through multiple cognitive psychiatric tests, live 2 years with unmatched documents in case I change my mind. This is called the real life test, where you're supposed to come out to your surroundings, no matter if risky or not. And lastly, this is interesting, sue my parents to court to have my legal documents changed. I had to continuously recite textbook notions to my sexuologists on what I perceive, how I feel about my body, to even be allowed to go through this entire process. And as a transmasculine individual, I had to claim things like I have a girlfriend, I feel uncomfortable wearing dresses, that I don't like feminine aspects of myself. And many other trans people did the same. They learned what to say to fit in the picture of what being trans was, according to the medical field, in order to be recognized and prescribed medication. Some sexuologists even undermine their trans identity if you are not heterosexual. So like people hid their sexuality. One of specialists even takes photos of naked patients of their bodies for his personal research. Weirdly enough, it's the only specialist in Poland that doesn't require you to go through the real life test and gives you HRT very early on, so the hormones. Today, there are more specialists, hopefully, especially younger ones, who hold more knowledge about trans people. And this September, Polish Sexologist Association updated their guidelines for the process of transition. And they called for cutting on medical examinations, erasing the real life test, and calling for more privacy for individual during the court rehearsals for document change. And despite all the negative things, there are many attempts coming from the people to change the situation for the better. In the end, transgender experiences are multiple and very unique. There is no single standard experience that is the same. But if you are systemically forced to conform to a made-up idea of how a trans person is, at some point you just stop even questioning it, especially since it's the only way to get recognized. Myself, I even believed in all that at some point. I knew no other narrative of trans experience. There was little positivity. Transgender studies led by actual trans people sparked in Poland only recently, like 2015. And for many years, I really believed something was wrong with me. Not because I truly felt so, but I was told by the specialists that I should feel so. And I really struggled with self-image because I was trying to adapt to expectations that I never really vibed with. I really care to say that the whole pathologizing and medical discourse of the trans experience comes from a lack of understanding from the part of institutions and medical field, as well as members of society. Using the diagnosis of gender dysphoria as the only criteria of allowing trans person access to legal recognition is just an act of imposing literal ways of living on people and forcing them to submit to misconceptions constructed by cisgender people of what being trans means. It is a complete ignoring of trans voices and denying the right to self-definition. And it also largely ignores a huge, amazing part of the trans experience, gender euphoria, or in other words, how happy it makes you being referred to with the right pronouns, being recognized and respected as a trans individual, expressing your personal essence, and many more just positive feelings. Finding a loving community in my early 20s, which accepted me for who I was and supported me, and recognized me as a trans and non-binary individual alike, really helped me overcome this internalized transphobic language. It took some years to unlearn violent vocabulary and important struggle, and to see myself as a worthy individual. I did it through relearning of what being queer is and what throughout history, and just being around like-minded individuals. I wouldn't have made it alone. As you can imagine, the stress generated by the process of transition is often amplified by the society in general. The awkwardness when you pass your credit cards to pay and the employee states, "Oh, sorry, sir, but this is a woman's credit card," or just any situation that requires showing ID, like job interview or buying a plane ticket. They force trans individuals to come out, and it creates a lot of stress. Will the person next to me be a jerk, or will they act chill? Since I decided to come out at age of 16, both at school and within my family, it was 10 years ago, I got a lot of transphobic hostility directed at me from teachers and students and family alike. And I felt really alone, fragile, and just excluded for a long time. But I also didn't want to hide and pretend that I don't exist, as much as I really just wanted to be left alone and in peace, more in peace than alone. Happily, I also found precious and supportive friends who stood up for me in school, and I managed to endure it through solidarity. There were some of you, and you had so much energy and rage. Thank you, allies. And the general public isn't very educated on trans people's issues either, and being trans is kind of often dumped with being gay or confused with cross-dressing or patronized and seen as we need to help these poor people, a legacy of that book I earlier mentioned. Or many times people just don't care at all. Trans people in Poland often don't really come out unless they're forced to. For example, when they start hormone replacement therapy and their appearance changes, or where they legally change their documents. After transition, people hardly ever come out. They remain invisible, mostly because the only thing that keeps them safe is exactly this invisibility or passing as cis individuals. Violence towards transgender people really stems from violence against queer people in general, especially homophobia, which unfortunately is prominent even in large urban contexts, such as Warsaw, Kraków, or Wrocław. Lambda Warszawa, an LGBT rights organization in the center of Warsaw, sometimes gets windows of their headquarters shattered with bricks and homophobic insults painted on their main entrance. Personally, I get even casually harassed and commented on the streets of Warsaw when I visit, and by random passerbys. And always in Warsaw, a flower rainbow installation hovering over an iconic roundabout in the central area, called Plac Zbawiciela, got burned 5 times by nationalists between 2012 and 2015. Even if it wasn't associated with LGBT community, it was just an installation. It had a lot of coverage in media though. Such forms of violence, usually casual and symbolic, happen every day. And the entire Polish institutional system is not only doing nothing to protect queer people from violence, it's straightforward encourages violence. A little bit of a tough part right now. In recent years, since 2015, the newly elected far-right government's propaganda really worsened the situation of all queer people in general. Prior to the election of current government, consisting mostly of Prawo i Sprawiedliwość, Law and Justice Party, well, there wasn't much space for queer people to begin with, but the general climate was much less hostile and society was less polarized. Today, institutions effectively combat and initiatives of LGBT organizations to educate the general society, such as activities for students in schools. There are a lot of LGBT associations who try to do something, but it's tough. And even pride marches are dangerous events, often met with violent counter-manifestations. In 2019, in the city of Lublin, on the south of Poland, a married couple brought a homemade bomb, willing to throw it on participants of the march. Despite all this violence and social exclusion, today, queer people are furious as ever. The year 2020 was peak year of government persecutions against LGBT individuals, such as imprisoning and persecuting activists, proclaiming LGBT people as an enemy during the presidential campaign that took place in May. And many more. I don't want to talk about it all because it's just terrible. And on top of all, in October, 2 months ago, the government tried to ban abortion whatsoever in the entire country. And hopefully or not, it made the people explode with rage, queer and not queer alike. Since this October, enormous protests are happening in the entire country, sparked as a response to that tentative of banning abortion rights, with thousands of people who come out on the street every day protesting repressions of government or citizens. Polish people are dissidents to the abuse of power and Catholic morality oppression. Major claims of the protests are the mission of the government itself, followed by instituting LGBTQA+ rights, reintegration within the European Union, and taking accountable the Catholic Church for its crimes, as well as effectively separating it from the state. It often ignites a lot of misinformation. There are many young people participating, but not only. There are also farmers and taxi drivers, elderly partisans, city mayors, and medical field who all take part in the protests. And the participation is enormous. Protesters occupy entire city centers, manifest in front of institutions and private houses of ruling party politicians. And they've had enough of government abusing power, repressing citizens, polarizing the society with propaganda, and embarrassing Polish people at the international area, painting them as bigoted or Eurosceptic. The protest symbol, a red thunder, maybe you can remember it. It is recognized and used to show support and will to overthrow the current government. Like people paint the thunders everywhere, project them on buildings, show support with private shops, like doing donuts with the symbol. It's really big. With the passing of time, though, the police is getting more violent. Acts of police brutality towards the protesters are growing more common. The system is trying and fighting to defend itself as fiercely as the people who try to dismantle it, fueled by years of humiliation, oppression, and fear. The battle has only started, but the social influence is already enormous. Everyone talks about the protest, like uncles, your grandparents or parents, everyone. People at the medic. And personally, I can feel something is changing in the behaviors. I never saw the Polish society so united and cooperating and condemning the systemic violence so openly and explicitly. And it's such large numbers. Intergenerational too. It's a start. And to conclude, I have a message or maybe a call. Don't repeat the mistake that Polish people did, and don't underestimate the right-wing governments take over. Don't let them take over. Don't underestimate their actions, and don't tolerate any fascist behaviors. And help the Polish people for spreading awareness internationally and showing support and solidarity. I believe that only together we can overthrow any abusive government. Thank you. So I'm done.
Thank you, Marcin.
Thank you. I hope it.
That was great. Really, really touching. Very insightful. And I think this text, if you want to share it for people to read.
No, of course.
Could be very interesting.
I would love to do that. I know it is a lot of negative information to take, but unfortunately, this is the truth. I really, really want to underline the fact that even though there is a lot of bad stuff going on, people aren't okay with this. They really want to change. They don't want to be seen as homophobes and like authoritarian regime of Europe. And this really brightens my heart out, especially since before I emigrated 6 years ago, I didn't hear a glance of such spirit. So things can change even in bad times. It's great. It's great to know.
So if we have any questions,
Yes, I have a couple that are correlated. I'll start with the first one. Starting from the end of the speech, Marcin said that like there's a huge part of the population that is starting to writing against like the government and how they govern. And my question is, what is doing like the opposition, the more progressive parties, and like how they're reacting to this and to the government?
Actually, very good. There is one very young party that is called Lewica Razem, the Left United. They are very active. They participate in the protests. As I said, the affluence is enormous. Like not only the left-wing parties, but in general, also centrist parties participate, and they have been very critiqued for that since before the protests they weren't much of allies for LGBT people or general against the government, and now they are trying to appear as cool and participating in protests, so this is also considered. But yeah, in general, everyone takes part. It's incredible. A lot of LGBT associations organize blockades, and they help protesters how to prepare, how to organize, what to do. There are Telegram channels that are not government, they're led by individuals who help navigate to avoid police brutality, and just crucial information. So yeah, to come back to your question, the opposition is also showing a statement against the government participating in the protests, especially Lewica Razem. But yeah, it is a very hot topic. It isn't unignored.
Awesome. Thank you for your answer. And continuing on this topic, I was thinking like which causes, which is the reason that led to the formation of the actual government? Like how is possible that the people allowed this discrimination, this situation in Poland?
I will briefly explain how it works in Poland, since the communism has been rejected, and since it is a democracy since 1990. It is just a cycle that people usually elect first centrist government and then the right-wing government, because people were never satisfied with politics, and it was just a natural cycle that okay, for these 4 years the right-wing governs, and for these 4 years the centrist governs, and then again and again and again. And this was just part of the natural cycle, let's say. It was obvious that in 2015 Law and Justice would be elected, but Law and Justice had this opinion of just being extremists who talk and never do anything to actually achieve their claims. Like they would always scare people with ultra-Catholic, very oppressive statements, but never really went forward too much. Of course, for example, in 2006, when peace governed, law and justice, they banned a Pride March in Warsaw in 2006. So it was, so they are already doing bad stuff. But the thing is, most to note is that people weren't expecting law and justice to be this forward with their ideas. They started really slowly and just continued pushing the bar a little bit forward and forward and forward, and until people and when people realized it's just too late to go back. This is why I cared to say that any abusive actions should be condemned. There shouldn't be any tolerance for discrimination and abuse of power. And as I said, not underestimating people, because peace had this opinion of they talk a lot, but they are crazy. They can't do anything. This is this is the main problem that led to the current situation, the underestimation. Sad as it is.
Clear, thank you. And I have just one last curiosity, since you mentioned the ultra-Catholic vision. So recently, there were some news about the fact that the Pope opened a bit towards LGBT people. And I wonder how these news were received in Poland.
I just want to joke and say, Pope Francis? What Pope Francis? We have only one Pope. But actually, seeing it really varies from family to family. As I said, the continuous propaganda of the government against LGBT people really polarized society. So there are white people and black people, and they clash. My family, for example, which is pretty Catholic, they are very accepting. They listen to what the Pope has to say, and even my grandmother said, if the Pope says so, who am I to judge? And so some people listen, but there are also many people who completely reject this, and it is fueled by propaganda. Like the worst thing I heard, it was in May this year during the presidential election. The current law and justice candidate, Andrzej Duda, who is also president now, during election, he said, LGBT is an ideology worse than communism, which is a big insult in Poland for a lot of people. When you say communism, some people put it equally with Nazism, for example, due to the regime that was overthrown pretty recently. So it really works because the people who are pretty, I don't know, prone to such words will listen. And if the president says so, or if they say so, yeah, right, that's true, and just closed to any dialogue. But the good thing is, even like right now, many people who are dissident of that, in fact, go out on the street, and people who don't agree with the protest, they talk shit online, they just talk over vodka, at family reunions, but they don't actively oppose the protests. So this is a good thing, that people who are motivated to change are doing something, and people who don't want to change just keep talking. Of course, this is not the entire picture, but these are the general tendencies. Of course, there are like neo-Nazis who swarm the protests, and the police is doing nothing to protect the participants. On the contrary, it is repressing them. but yeah, it's a very active situation, a very turbulent, and it's changing constantly. But something's going on all the time. I'm done.
Thank you, thank you, Marcin. I want to check in with Koi if there are any questions for her, or if she can leave whenever she wants, if she's still in here, because I can't see that. I think she left.
I think she left, yes.
Yeah, okay. So if there are no further questions for Marcin, I think they were very very thorough with their presentation. So I'd maybe hear something from Joshua. So to contrapose two very, very different realities, I guess, if that's fine.
Yeah,
More than
absolutely.
fine.
Did you want me to share my presentation or just
Yeah,
share?
yeah. You can share your screen. I think you have
Perfect. Let me get that set up. All right. So let's see if I can get everything set up. All right.
Okay, thank you, Sophie, for the info.
So I'll try to go quickly because I want to have enough time for questions, just because I know America hasn't been looking great recently. And so I would love to know what people want to know and know what I can clear up. Okay, so my name is Joshua. I'm from the US. I'll introduce myself a little further, but first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for having me here. I'm excited to share and see what people think and have to say. When
Thank
we
you for
started,
coming.
yeah,
I'm also very excited to have you here.
Thank you. I when this started, it was 9 in the morning for me, so a little early for me, but I'm glad to be here. All right, let's move forward.
Yeah,
All right.
we had the daylight savings time that happened when I invited you. It should have been 10 a.m. I
That's
think when we
just
first
fine.
talked, and then daylight savings, and now it's an hour early.
It's you know what, we'll work with it. All right, so my full name is Joshua Ben Escher Bluanello. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm 20 years old. I'm from the US. This, I don't know, can you see my cursor if I move it? Yeah?
Yes,
okay,
we can.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so here is me at my university. We have this little arch and this statue that we call the sun god statue. It's the sun god of the Kumeyaay people, which is the people of the native, excuse me, the native tribe that is in the area that the university was built on. This is where I grew up in Arizona. I currently live in California, so just one state over in Arizona. But Arizona is a much different reality than California. This is me with my partner and my 2 roommates, my older sister and my mom. This was on my birthday. All right. So I currently live in La Jolla, California, and that's in the Southwest US. This is a picture, if you can see this building, that's our library on campus. So we're really close to the coast. It's really beautiful. This is a closer picture of that library. And then I work at our LGBT resource center. So this is our center that we have. This is a little old photo, but that's where I work. Well, not currently. Currently, I'm working from home, but normally that's where I would be. I'm currently studying for a BA in visual arts media and a BS in psychology. This is the art that I've been doing recently. My art has a very queer focus, and so that's a little representation of some of the stuff I've been doing recently. Click forward. So I wanted to share some of the things that have been kind of going on in my smaller circle, and then I'll kind of expand to the greater US. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to, drop them in the chat, interrupt me. But in this first photo, we have a rally that was happening on campus. The grad students were asking for a cost of living adjustment because the way that they were being paid did not match the rent that was being asked of them for the grad housing on campus. So most of the TAs and the grad students that were working there were spending 50% of their income just on rent. So this is something that's been going on for a while. This is to kind of contrast that. This is in Northern California, where we have this giant rainbow sidewalk, and we were visiting my friend and her girlfriend. But then also I have another job at an ice rink, and this was a sticker that was left by one of my coworkers. So like being gay is still used as like a joke or an insult. So there's a lot of different contrasting spaces in the US. There's a lot of things that are, or spaces that are really progressive and spaces that are not very progressive, and everything in between, everything that's changing in between. And then to move on to the greater US, this is kind of what we've been seeing recently. And I don't know how much of this is being shared in like the worldwide news, but we have been having a lot of like these anti-maskers of people that don't want shutdowns or people that don't want to wear their masks because of the pandemic. We're still really deeply within the pandemic. It's not great here. Like I'm hoping that with the president coming in January that things will change pretty quickly. But I think when people say that America is very individualistic, I would say that this is a good representation of that people really care about like getting haircuts and going to the bar rather than people's health. These are some of the fires that have been going on in California, climate change. The people that are in literal cages at the border, this overcrowding. This is a representation of Jeff Bezos's wealth in rice. So I know it's in American dollars, but $100,000 represented by 1 grain of rice is about what someone in middle to upper middle class would make in a year. So like a high manager of a company. So that's like a good amount. Like everyone wants to make $100,000. And then $1 million, a lot of people rarely like make $1 million in their lifetime. And then this is how much he currently has. And so we've been really angry about that, especially in America. The state of the country is deeply tied to capitalism and the corporations that are in power. And then in this photo, this is from a Black Lives Matter rally recently. I want to say this is in Portland, Oregon. So there's a lot going on. And it's difficult to see all of this and wonder, like, why is nothing changing? And that's because this is what people are met with. Ooh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I think I set my alarm late for this morning. It's a good thing I didn't miss that. But this is what especially the Black Lives Matter protesters have been met with. I think America is a very deep police state, in that if you are attacking either the capitalism in place, if you're really trying to make any real change, it's met with violence. There's a joke that the CIA award for journalism is a bullet in the head, because a lot of journalists that cover anything that can like make real change, so anything that has to do with like people that are in really high power, anything that uncovers anything major, it's silenced violently. And so it's difficult to speak up and make that real change when you know that this is the risk, that the government is not, I don't want to say the government isn't afraid of its people, because otherwise, why would they meet it with force if they weren't afraid of the change we could make? But I think also the people are very afraid of the government and the people that have the power to do harm. I think the police are given a lot of power to do any enforcing that they want. And so usually that is to meet their own agendas. And these are, it's tough to talk about because these are broad, really broad issues that are happening. These are things that are really deeply rooted in America. And so there's so much that there is to talk about. So I'm only, scraping the surface with these things right now. I'm only talking about the very surface level things with these. So again, any questions are very welcomed. So on that note, I wanted to share just like what I've been doing to kind of cope with things that have been going on, especially because right now, California just implemented a new stay-at-home order, which really means nothing. It means don't go out except to get groceries or go to the mall or get your hair cut or go to restaurants. So it means nothing. But for those of us that are still trying to do our part, I've been really just trying to focus on the basics, making sure I'm getting enough water, getting enough sleep. And this is also, I wanted to share this in case anyone else is in a similar position. I don't really know how things are in different countries right now, like what the reality is.
Bad.
But okay.
It's bad.
We've been locked down for a month already.
Okay.
And they're discussing now if they should lock down even further for Christmas or not.
I can't wait for the third one. The third one is gonna be amazing.
Third time's a charm. So yeah, this is my recommendations for how to stay sane right now. I've been taking a lot of walks, drinking tea, reading. I've been going through books a lot more quickly than I used to. Therapy, if you have access to it, is really helpful. It's still a little bit of a taboo in America, in that like if you are seeking therapy or a psychologist, like there has to be something wrong with you. But I think anyone can benefit from therapy, even if you just have like a tough job or you're struggling to manage schoolwork. It's really helpful. Um, and then balancing company and alone time. So I live with 3 other people. So it's been tough to balance like when I need alone time and when I want company, because I'm around these people constantly. So sometimes I don't realize that, you know, I'm getting tired of being around people because I don't have the same private space that I normally would. Um, and just like focusing on mindfulness, meditation. I've been doing a lot of not necessarily journaling, but just like writing down whatever's in my head so that I can get it out of my head. Um, because otherwise I'll just think about it and think about it. So just writing it down so that it's somewhere else. Um, these are the kittens that we're fostering right now. They were feral or stray. And so they've grown a lot since we've had them. They have been my cuddle bugs, and they've been a real treat. Especially when you don't want to be around people, animals can be a lot better. Um, and these past couple days have been the first couple nights of Hanukkah. This is one of my first years celebrating Hanukkah. I was raised Jewish, but I'm not very religious, so I really strayed away from like any religious activities, but I wanted to like explore the culture a little bit more, and so this is my my first year celebrating Hanukkah. Um, so I know I talked about a lot of like different things, but I wanted to kind of move quickly so that people could have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. So um, here's some ugly pictures of my cats. And I left my email in case anyone has questions that they think of later, or if you didn't want to ask in the meeting, that you have that opportunity. So please, whether it's personal or big or dark or whatever, have at it. I'm very curious to see how America is looking for other people right now.
Thank you very much. I think I'll see what if anyone has questions. Otherwise, I'd make one myself. Um, I don't think anyone has questions. So you said you worked in the community. What's it called?
So we have a group of, we call them the campus community centers. Um, we have like the Black Resource Center, the LGBT Resource Center, the Undocumented Students Resource Center. So I work at the LGBT Resource Center. This is my second year working there. A lot of the work that I'm doing there is, I really love that job. I have been able to like really make good progress as far as like the campus goes, and just like that small community. Um, my current job is a peer educator. So when we have like trainings for people that are um, gonna have campus influence. So like if there's people that do campus tours or people that are hosting events, I train the people that train them. So um, when they want to know about like how to be inclusive or how to like handle certain situations with like queer and trans individuals, I train the people that train them on those things. So I'm teaching people how to like be better educators and just like facilitate better on these sorts of topics, if that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks. I don't think we have, I'm asking the Italians here, do we have something like that in our university? I don't think so. No, yeah, I thought so. I guess we should go ahead with the next, with Simon. So if there's any questions later, or if something comes up, because we are right on time for Simon, and
oh, and I think there was a question from Andrea.
what in the university, a resource center, like Joshua explained.
And I should probably stop sharing my screen.
Okay, I think Simon, if you want to go ahead in the meantime, and we'll
and
we might have some time at the end.
Let me clarify the question in the chat.
Okay.
So we have different centers, like some are just like virtual spaces and some are actual buildings, but the people that work there, their job is to manage the specific issues of certain communities of students. So like Black students in San Diego are like not well represented on campus. Like there's a really small population of Black students on campus. And so like anything that is going on there, or like within their culture, like they hold space for that and help build that community so that people can connect with each other and get any resources that are like individual to that community. So like at the LGBT Resource Center, ours is similar. Ours is a little different because we're also helping people find resources for like transitioning, and like we have spaces to like talk about coming out. So like we have different like just conversation groups that talk about like coming out experiences and things like that. But essentially the main job of each center is to help build community in each of those individual communities.
Okay, thank you. A safe space, as far as I know. Yeah. Okay. Simon, if you want.
Yes.
You can
Can
start.
everyone hear me properly? So I can.
Yes,
all right.
I can hear you.
So I've neither prepared a speech or a presentation, like a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm still prepared to share little facts about my coming out experience and the current situation, like where I'm living. So first I'm gonna introduce myself. I'm Simon. I'm 21 years old and I live in West Germany, like very west, almost in the Netherlands. And I'm a seventh semester student of mechanical engineering at RWTH Aachen University. And my coming out experience is really unspectacular for some, but I think it's very representative, as I was dealing with like the most typical issues that people in my area would deal with. So yeah, I will just talk about my coming out experience first and then go into the situation in Germany a little bit more. So growing up, I always, like most people, I always knew that there was something different, and I connected the term gay with myself probably the first time when I was like around 11 and 12. And one of the issues back then was that the most, because I was, as most people also, I was not talking with many people about that, or with no one to be more precise. The only real contact I had with other gay people was through YouTube. And those stories were, I think, through like the most stories they share are very dramatic to an amount which is not representative for a guy like me growing up in Germany, which made me probably a little bit more scared, which is not a bad thing that these stories are shared. They need to be shared. However, it was not helping me to build up the bravery to come out. And then the next real experience I had with anything regarding LGBT was 2014 when I lived in Australia for a half year. And in Australia, I had a host brother, which name is Filippo, who's in the meeting as well. So he was living with me in the same host family, and he in Australia came out, and which meant to me that I was thinking about coming out in Australia as well. However, that like cleared it for me to not do it because I was not ready for people to think things like, oh, two gay host brothers under one roof, how's that gonna go, or whatever. So I was not ready for that. However, it was a blessing on the other side because I was able to I had a front row seat for someone coming out and for his experiences, and I could maybe be supportive on the one hand, but also see how he's going. So that went very well. Filippo handled everything really well as well. So, and then my parents after Australia picked me up in Australia, and I traveled around with them together. And that's when I came out to them, partially inspired by Filippo, partially fed up not being outed as planned. And that was not really an issue at all. And I think that's like something I was really scared of. And then the rest of my school time, I spent not outed to the rest of the world, which had several reasons. The first reason is one of the big German issues is even though we are rather progressed, there's no institutions for the LGBTQ community starting at like anything further, like in a younger age than uni, like high school or even elementary school. It's not dealt with. There's like no safe place, which is like for there are safe places, like there are trust teachers that you can tell anything, but it's not, especially like you as a member of the LGBTQ community, you're not really sure whether that's the safe place for you because it doesn't have this label. So, and the other things were that I was very active in male dominated sports like tennis and handball. And even though it's a cliche that those are really masculine sports, that I fit the cliche and was scared off outing myself there. But I had the rule for myself that I would out myself as soon as someone would ask me if I was gay. At least I had the rule. I don't know if I would have done it because I didn't get this situation ever, but I didn't want to lie about it. And then after graduation, when I was 18, I was like very determined to become more open about it, as well as I was really curious about anything like a gay relationship, etc. And that's when I went online, and that's where I found my boyfriend, which I'm still together with now since 3 years. And when I was in this relationship, like starting off really early, I told my close friends, and then I didn't want to out myself, but just live this relationship openly. And it took like 2 days, and I kissed my boyfriend in public. Someone saw it, and my friends the next day told me, yeah, everyone knows you're like the main topic of school right now, which shows that in Germany it's still a big deal because like it seemed to be I wasn't even in school anymore, but everyone knew my name, and it was a little bit scary. However, I was also proud of it, and it turned out really, really fine. I still have the same group of friends. They are all crazily supportive. Like in handball, I'm also a dancer, so the theater background was not scaring me off. That's no issue, obviously. For like, it's a cliche, but it is that way. But also handball, tennis, those friend groups, they were not an issue at all, which is really nice. how the only issues in Germany you would get as an outed person is like, there are still areas where I would not walk around with my boyfriend holding hands, especially like, there are many pubs in Germany, and most pubs are alliances of certain soccer fans, fan groups of soccer teams. And those teams are known for being pretty homophobic. So there are still issues like that in the society. However, it's rather small. However, the current situation in Germany, in my opinion, is quite controversial because it's very different politically and then culturally, because our cultural background is way more advanced than most people would think. We have like the Christopher Street Day, which is like the Pride Parade. We have it in almost every major city in Germany. And the one in Cologne is the second biggest in Europe, I think. And the gay community in Cologne especially is known for being very big and very impactful. Also, they're a huge deal in society, or a big cultural thing in Germany is Carnival, which is mainly, probably most people know Carnival in Rio. In West Germany, it's a similar thing without the heat and the samba. And it's meant to, in general, it just celebrates diversity in general. So people dress up as whatever they want, they drink, they have fun, and it really doesn't matter. It really shows that race, religion, sexuality, whatsoever doesn't matter. Especially if you look at the Carnival Parade in Düsseldorf, it almost only consists of caricatures like cartoons, which criticize the current situation. So culturally, we are rather advanced. Also in society, there are more things happening slowly. For instance, in TV, we have Prince and Princess Charming, which are like the homosexual versions of The Bachelor. We get it. We had a German drag race. Those are simple things, but these are happening, and there are more outed celebrities also, which slowly tend to be known for not only being gay, because that was a big thing in Germany too. However, politically, we are rather slow for a country which is known to be progressed. We just legalized gay marriage very recently as one of the later European countries. Adoption laws are very difficult. Like me as a gay man, I cannot adopt a child yet, like not at all. A lesbian couple can, but it's a very complicated procedure. And you have to be married, and you need many papers, and you need to make many tests to actually be allowed. As in comparison, a straight couple can just adopt very easily. And I think the main reason for that is because always when any LGBTQ regarding debate is coming up, it's overshadowed by bigger topics like refugees, COVID, whatever it is. And Germany has not built up a heat yet to still manifest those topics and still talk about them, because it's always, like I said, overshadowed. And I think a big reason for that is that there are just such few LGBTQ groups where I can, like, my university has no organization for LGBTQ community. My high school obviously didn't have that either. And I think that's very, very different too. For instance, I feel like the USA, they seem to have way more organizations towards it, even though the situation may probably not be better or more progressed there. It's more talking about. And that's what makes it very unsatisfying in Germany right now, I feel like. Yeah, but however, it could be way worse, obviously. but it's still, that's why I'm very happy to be part of something like this today, because that's very not every day for me, because yeah, it's really rare here. That's pretty much it.
Awesome, thank you. I wanted to get back to you with the media and the celebrity people.
Yeah, of course.
I know my grandma is from Düsseldorf.
Yeah.
And so in my house, it's always German TV. And I know that one of the most famous comedians is Harper Kerkeling.
Yes.
And he's been doing drag for, I think, 30 years on German television. And so being in Italy, but seeing German media, to me, it feels much more advanced in acceptance in Germany than it feels like being in Italy. But then you look at the laws and like, for example, the marriage law, which came later than Italian marriage law for gay people. And this is very strange to experience, because if you're from outside, it looks very accepting and all that, and you're saying that instead it feels like it feels to me in Italy.
Yeah, I think mainly like for instance, Harper Kerkeling, it's like the perfect example. It shows that gay comedians or gay people can exist, but they are still somehow looked down on. Like he's making it funny, so it's accepted, and that's, I think Carnival helped those topics coming up. However, it brings them in the light of just being not taken seriously enough to actually make a change. So it's like very split. We have, and that's very weird too, regarding, like, we had, for instance, a outed gay politician a few years ago, and he was actually a minister. He was very well known. His name is Guido Westerwelle. However,
I didn't know that.
Okay.
So
he was pretty well known, but also I think that's the case in every country probably today. But the first association coming up with Guido Westerwelle was gay.
Mm-hmm.
And still is. And that even though he was one of the most impactful politicians back then. So that was yeah. But at least there was one. So it's like very hard to complain. It's like you have to find your way there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are there any questions from the other people in the meeting?
Actually, I have a question. I have heard that Köln, as the city, is very queer friendly in general. And I am curious about how, if you know any information, how it is being queer in Köln, as you mentioned, the very big pride parade. Like, are there many places for LGBT people, like bars or just anything? I'm curious about it.
Yes, there are many bars. There's actually a whole quarter, which is kind of what's the word? Which is meant for the. I'm just gonna look it up.
Just tell it.
Just dedicated for the gay community. So it's also because Carnival in Cologne is really big. It's like the center of Carnival, and I think that's why this community came up so way earlier there than it could anywhere else. And I think it's kind of for many people which were moving away from their home cities because they were having trouble with them outing themselves because they were not accepted there. A new Cologne as this epicenter for gay people, and that's why they moved there, and that's why also there are way more gay people in Cologne as there are in other countries and other cities, which sounds as a stupid cliche, but it really is that case. at least outed people. And yeah, in Cologne, if you walk across the street holding hands, you won't be looked at as you would be looked at in other cities. So yeah, it really is different. I have, of course, still everything in its limits.
Thank you so much. If I can, I would like to share a very quick consideration about also city. In Warsaw, Warsaw as the capital of Poland is also like known kind of mecca for gay people, but and there are many places for just cultivating queer culture, but they are very underground. That you won't find rainbow flags or nothing that indicates this is a gay bar. Just everyone knows that this is a queer place, and they go there and they do gay stuff. Like there are drag queen shows, a few bars in the city center, but they are very, very hidden. If you show a rainbow flag, you will get your window shattered with bricks, stuff like that. So yeah, I saw that this little similarity between a prominent gay city, like just cool, of course, way more open. But it's interesting to see that that things are happening. It's nice. Even a little center is something you can go there and try to live in tone with yourself.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks again.
Of course. Yeah, but I feel like gay bars, for instance, are a thing that, for instance, in the US, I think is way an older concept than it is in Germany. Like in other cities, disregarding Cologne, the only gay bars you will find there are like maximum 2 years old, which is, I think, very interesting, but which is a positive progress because people can go there and socialize and find contacts, and I think that's a very positive thing. However, you can only enter a bar 16 plus in Germany, so yeah, but still, that's a good thing. So it's not Cologne only.
Finding, I see. Finding community or just other people like-minded is crucial. So I'm happy to hear about that such reality in Cologne exists.
Yeah, but it really does. Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone else has any questions for any of the guests that are here. It's not just or wants to say something.
Yeah, I have a question. I'd like to go back to Joshua regarding you say, I was thinking about the conversion therapies, if it is still a thing and how it's going, like, because something that I know because of movies, but not in a direct way, because it's not something that really exists in Italy and Europe, I think. But yeah, I would like to hear more about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think it's as like sensationalized as it is in the media. I think it still exists, but not on a large scale. Like you'd really have to like seek it out to find it. I think what's more common and more likely is like really subtle forms of like conversion therapy, like taking your kid to a therapist that is like homophobic and is trying to say like, oh, like, is this really what you want? Are you sure? Like just trying to like pathologize it out of their head rather than it being like physical, like it usually is in the media. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, actually, yes.
So I wanted to go back to the safe space in schools. When I went to Arizona, when I went to Equality Club, which Joshua was the president of, it was the first time in a school, in my history in being in school, having a space where this sort of topics was discussed. And I wanted to know from when I was there, I felt very much as though the people were very accepting. But that was my experience from being a foreigner and being, I guess, more accepted because being a foreigner, like Koi said earlier, it happens in China. So I'm curious if that is the same feeling, the same impression you had towards the one I had when I was there.
I think that specific high school was very accepting in comparison to other high schools in the area, in that, like, especially kids coming from middle school, like if their parents knew that they were gay or trans, they would take them to that high school because they thought they would have an easier time there, or just that like they would be able to find more friends there. I think in general, Arizona is very repressed and very quiet about their bigotry. There's a really big Mormon population, especially in the town of Gilbert. And so I think they're always trying to balance like their values and also politeness. So like, even if people have like negative opinions, they don't say it. So it's difficult because like you're not gonna get like, there's not like as much hate crimes and things like that, but at the same, so it's not as violent, but because of that, it's hard to know what people actually think. So it's, I think for me, it's more like
Arizona is the Piedmont of USA.
I think it's that like and this is similar, I think, in California as well, that people don't want to come across as like, they know that being bigoted or closed-minded doesn't look good, and so they're just quiet about it. And so that makes it hard to know like what spaces you can exist like really loudly in. And I was thinking about I should have shared this earlier, that like when finding like housing, me and the three people I live with were all queer. And so it was like, it's always like a, let's just not bring it up just in case like the person reading the application is homophobic, so even if it's not like violent, that makes it difficult because then you don't know what people actually think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like our image of California would be like the most open-minded and the most accepting. Like that's the image we get from media and from just how it is portrayed. So this is kind of interesting to hear that even California is in some ways very much like even like Milan, I guess.
And I think it's so weird because America is so big that there's really, really progressive places and really, really repressed places. And sometimes you don't know where, because like people are usually quiet about it, sometimes you don't know like where you are. The city that my university is in, where I live, is a really like rich area. And so with like more upper class people, that's usually more conservative values. but also it's only like a 30-minute drive from the city of Hillcrest, where like there's a rainbow flag on every storefront. So it's like, you know, you drive 30 minutes and it's like a totally different group of people. If you drive 30 minutes southwest, there's a town called Santee that people call Clan T because of like the Ku Klux Klan. So it's like it's so, you know, wildly different, just like one town over.
Okay, thanks. That's very interesting. Like, I'm kind of yeah. So we have 5 minutes till 8. So if there's any other things that people want to add, talk about, if you have to go, like I'm talking to everyone. If there's any other questions, otherwise I would stop the recording, and after that, if you want to hang out or just, you know, chat in a less formal way, you're welcome to. So I'll wait for some questions. Otherwise, I'll stop the recording.
Yeah, I think I'll make the last question. Still to Joshua. Since he said that he's studying arts, I think. Okay, nice. I was thinking about representation in media. So I wanted to ask you, if you, which is a good representation in media that has been done in the USA, like, or like how is being LGBT in the movies portrayed in the USA, and how is it received from the audience? And added to this thing, still in the field of cinema, like in the last years, there's a big discussion about the fact that gay characters should be acted only by gay people. What do you think about that?
As for the representation, I think it depends on how big the media is. So like when there's like a really big children's movie that's coming out, and like there's a lot of like advertising around it, like it's like popular before it even comes out. If there's like even, I am trying to think of one in, that was recent. I think it was like the second Finding Dory, like the second Finding Nemo movie. There was like two women holding hands, like just walking in the background, and like people freaked out about it. I don't think it was freaking out on like a wide scale. Like I think it was a pretty like small group of people. Most people were just like whatever. But I think people are really still wary about representation in children's media. I think in America, like gay and lesbian couples are really over sexualized. So like it's seen as like inappropriate, and it's like, oh, like that's not for kids. But there's also some really good representation. At the same time, it's just not as popular. So like there's a show called Pose that talks about the ballroom scene in the 80s, and has really great representation of like different races and different like talks about queer people and trans people, and has a lot of like trans actors and non-binary actors. And so I think it just depends like how popular it is, and also like who it's aimed at. So like the representation is out there, but sometimes with popular media, sometimes it feels like you're like begging for scraps, you know, like you're just like, oh, come on, like all you're gonna give me is like two women holding hands like in the background, like that's it. But as for your question about what I think about gay people like representing gay characters and like trans people representing trans characters, I think especially in America, I don't know how like globalized this idea of affirmative action is, but it's been like a really popular debate in America in like the past couple years. The idea is that like you have to have a certain, like the way that your company looks has to match the population of the US. So like you can't just have like an all white company, like that's not okay, like to only hire white people. Like your company has to look like there has to be a certain percentage of like certain racial minorities and things like that. And it's been a really popular debate recently. It just was on the last ballot for California, and I don't think it passed. But I think to get back to your question, it's more about giving people, for me, giving people opportunities. So like normally if like it's harder for gay and trans people to get those jobs, like they're, you know, there's systemically like there's systemic oppression and like systemic discrimination. And so it's like, why give that job to a straight person if you had a perfectly good opportunity to give that job to a gay person? So I think it's less about that like straight people can't act like gay people or that sort of thing. I think it's more that we should give those opportunities to people who need them more. If that, I don't know if I just talked around it or if that made sense.
No, yeah, it's totally understandable. Thanks.
So, but what you're saying is that once you come out as a gay actor or lesbian actress, you're just marked as gay, and you can only play those roles. It's not something that they decide. It's sorry, no, because here in Italy we have an example of really famous and, well, it's not my favorite actor, but he's really popular here in Italy. And of course, I don't remember his name. Well, he came out like 1 month ago, probably, and he said that the reason after all these years of working and basically all the roles that he played were like these really masculine guy, always with lots of different girls in every movie. And he said that he was worried that if he came out before like launching his career, he couldn't have he wouldn't have the same success that he did hiding it.
Yeah, I think that's totally accurate, that people don't want to get typecasted. Like it's easier to like be quiet about it and establish your career and then like come out. I think it also depends on how well you fit the stereotype of like a masculine man or a gay person. So like there are gay actors that, yes?
No, sorry, but you use that word that I don't really like, a stereotype, because I mean, if you're looking for a stereotype, that's not the reality. So, I mean, if we want to have real representation of LGBT community in movies, and we shouldn't look for the stereotype, because otherwise, I mean, I think it's not really a matter of fact of is the actor that he's playing that role really gay, or is it just an actor, so he's just playing. The script should be different, okay? It's not really a matter of fact of the sexuality of the actor or the actress. And because I mean, it's not all gay people are looking for the best clothes and work in I don't know, public relationships, because I mean, lots of movies that I saw are the gay characters always do the same things. They are very good looking, they dress really well, they work for I don't know, publicity or directors in movies. And I mean, I'm gay and I'm an engineer. Future, I will be. I don't know. I hope so. One day.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I think it's the media's like take on that, and always like there's always a little bit of, how do I say, whoever writes the script, their own biases are put in it, whether they realize it or not. So if the person who writes the script thinks that all gay people are like that, then it's gonna be in the script, even if they don't realize that that's not accurate. And so I think the media is just a reflection of what the general population thinks as a whole because of that. But it also is a reflection of those people that are already in the power to share their opinions. So like the people that have those jobs where they get to dictate what things look like in the media, the people that get to write the scripts and direct things, those are usually people that are straight white men that would normally have power in the first place. So I think there's always a balance between what does the general population want to see, like what do they already think, and what are the people in power, like what do they want to portray?
If there are no other questions, I would end today's recording at least. And I would invite everyone that wants to follow us on social media. We have a Telegram group chat. We have a Telegram channel where we share upcoming events. And we have Instagram and Facebook where we usually share. On Facebook, we have all the events as an event. And on Instagram, we share different media depending on national or international events that are happening, as well as the events that we organize.
We also have a fabulous website.
We have a website which is not on here, which I don't know the URL of on the top of my head.
Just Google PoliEdro, PoliMe, and the first thing that comes up, it's us.
I want to thank everyone for coming. To the guests, I want to thank the guests for coming and having shared such great insight into their lives and into their countries. And I hope we will see you at the next event, which is kind of up in the air right now, but stay tuned in PoliEdro Live for that.